Hey, Mr. Liu, during the 2008 campaign, the president made some promises. The Republican National Committee, since the ruling by the Chief Justice that the mandate is a tax, they have put out a video noting what the president said to voters when he was campaigning in 2008. Let's watch.
If you are a family making less than $250,000 a year, you will not see your taxes go up.
You will not see one dime's worth of tax increase.
Any form of tax increase.
Question: didn't the president break that promise?
Well, Chris, if you go back and you look at the laws that have been enacted since the president's taken office, we have cut taxes for those families. We have reduced their taxes.
But according to the Supreme Court, this is going to raise taxes for those families.
That's not what the Supreme Court said. What the Supreme Court said was this was constitutional. They said it didn't matter what Congress called it. It is a penalty for the 1%.
No, wait a minute, sir.
It is a penalty for the 1% who choose not to buy insurance.
Mr. Liu, they call it a tax.
No, actually, technically what they said is the Congress has many powers. There's a Commerce Clause, there's taxing powers, and it was constitutional. That's what they said. They said it doesn't matter what you call it.
I can't let you go there. It specifically said that it is not constitutional under the Commerce Clause. They said it is constitutional under the tax. And as to the question about raising taxes for the middle class, if I may, sir, let's just look at the record. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that in 2016, 4 million Americans will pay the mandate penalty or tax. 75% of those people will make less than $120,000 a year. And the CBO says between 2012 and 2021, those folks will pay $27 billion in additional taxes. So,
Chris,
if I may just finish my question, and then I promise I'll let you talk. The middle class is taking quite a hit by what the Supreme Court said is a tax.
I think if you look at all of the laws enacted in the last 3.5 years, you would see that those families have a tax cut. All the independent analysts, whether it's the Congressional Budget Office or others, would validate that there has been a tax cut for middle-class families.
I'm not arguing that. All I'm saying is that this is a tax increase on the middle class of $27 billion over the next 10 years.
No, what this is a law that says if you can afford insurance and you choose not to buy it, and you choose to have your health costs be a burden to others, you'll pay a penalty so that you'll pay your fair share. That's what this law says. For the 99% of the people who buy insurance or who get it through the tax cuts that are in this act, they're not going to be affected. You keep your insurance, you don't pay any kind of penalty. For the very few people who decide to be free riders and not have insurance but still have their costs go into the system so the rest of us pay it, there's a penalty. It is not a burden on the middle class.
Well, again, the nonpartisan CBO says 4 million Americans will be paying that tax by 2016. And let's look at why Chief Justice Roberts called it a tax. It will be collected and enforced by the Internal Revenue Service. What you pay is calculated as a percentage of your income. And here's what the president's lawyer, the Solicitor General Donald Verrilli, told the court in defending the mandate.
Not only is it fair to read this as an exercise of the tax power, but this court has got an obligation to construe it as an exercise of the tax power if it can be upheld on that basis.
Why? Mr. Liu, if it walks, looks, and quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Well, Chris, it's been a long time since I've practiced law, but I know one of the things about our judicial system is that you can make arguments to the court on multiple grounds. That's what Don was doing. He was saying there are a lot of ways to look at this. It was set up, and it was not called a tax. But there are powers that Congress has, and you can justify a law in multiple ways. The court took that route. It is a penalty. It was defined as a penalty in the law, and it's something that people choose whether or not to be subject to. Most Americans want health insurance. 99% of people will take advantage of the fact that they have affordable coverage that can protect their families. For the 1% that choose not to have insurance, they don't control whether they're going to be in an accident or be struck by illness. If they end up in a hospital and they have to have expensive treatment, those costs will be borne by other people who pay for insurance. This penalty says you cannot be a free rider. You cannot go without any payment. And the penalty is that payment. Very few people will choose it. In Massachusetts, 1% of people chose to pay the penalty instead of have insurance. People want health insurance.
I want to move on to something else, but I just have to ask one last time. I mean, there are lots of taxes, sir, that people either choose to pay or not, depending on their actions. A cigarette tax, I don't pay because I don't smoke. Maybe somebody else pays because they do smoke. So there are plenty of taxes that are discretionary in terms of what your behavior is. Would you agree that in Chief Justice Roberts' ruling, he said that this is constitutional only as a tax?
I would say that what the opinion said is that there are multiple powers that Congress has to make law, and this law is constitutional.
That's not what he said, sir, but well, I'm going to move ahead.